Welcome back to the Rule Your Pool podcast, everybody. This is episode number 61. This is actually on video this time. We haven't done a video one in a long time. This is a special episode. It is different from everything that we've been talking about before. Normally we talk about pool chemistry, but circumstances have led us to an episode that I've wanted to do for a long time, but now is a better time than ever. We have a special guest on today, Rob Butcher, who is the CEO of Swim Across America. And the reason I have Rob on here, especially right now, is because we sadly lost one of our employees to cancer a week ago. Her name was Kelly, a very sweet lady, and we're going to talk about Kelly, and we're going to honor her, and we're going to honor those who have lost loved ones to cancer and those who are battling cancer now. So we're going to, not going to talk about pool care today in this episode. So this is episode 61. We're going to talk about making waves to fight cancer with Swim Across America. Let's go. Welcome to Rule Your Pool, the podcast by Orenda that explains and simplifies pool chemistry so that anybody, regardless of experience, can understand it. I'm your host, Eric Knight, bringing clarity to these subjects so that you can bring clarity to your water. If you're ready to rule your pool, then let's go. Okay, Rob, thank you for being with us. Let's start there.
Hey, Eric, by the way, I know we don't want to talk about pool chemistry, but I do have a pool at my house.
I know, I've been to it.
Yeah, you did.
I actually put you on Facebook Live.
And I did. And I just added this afternoon, I guess, the Orenda enzymes to my pool, 1 ounce. And I just watched, pollen's all over the place. I just watched it go, just run.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Run.
I love it. That surface tension is like throwing soap in a greasy lasagna tray at the end. And it's so cool. So, well, thank you for the little plug. But we're gonna plug your organization, not ours. We don't like to talk about ourselves much on this. So who are you? What is Swim Across America, and how did you get into this?
Yeah, I guess the sort of summary story is we're actually celebrating our 35th anniversary this year. Swim Across America is. And for any of your listeners, you could go to swimacrossamerica.org. We are a nonprofit based here in the United States. And then if you're really curious, just put in a / the number 35. So swimacrossamerica.org/35. And we just launched our 35th anniversary storyboard. And it goes all the way back into the history of Swim Across America. How, for example, did a boat sinking in 1987 lead to us raising $100 million that has gone on to fund cancer research and patient programs that have benefited so many people across the United States. And so the story of Swim Across America is actually told there. And people, ask me, well, wait a minute, tell me a little bit more about this sinking boat thing. It's really a fascinating story. So
hold on. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about this sinking boat thing.
Okay. So it actually goes back to 1984, and you would sort of ask yourself why. Well, there was a gentleman named Jeff Keith, and Jeff lost his leg to cancer when he was a young teenager. And Jeff was inspired as he went through Boston College to do something really challenging to raise money at that time for cancer research, because when Jeff was diagnosed, his options were surgery, chemo, and radiation. And he and others, his childhood friends, thought there has to be something better than that. So they ran across the United States. Now think about that. In 1984, the summer after he graduated from Boston College, he ran across the United States on the time, which was considered modern technology, a wooden leg. And
wow.
Anywhere from 15 to 25 miles a day, took him 9 months. I know I'm watching your facial expressions right now. And they ran in at the time, which was, a very 1984, looked like Clark Griswold Winnebago. It was going 1 to 2 miles an hour across the United States.
That was Uncle Eddie, to be fair.
Yeah,
that was Uncle Eddie's Winnebago.
From the Vacation series, for those of you that are fans out there. And so when they finished in 1985, it took 9 months. The first phone call they got was from President Ronald Reagan congratulating them. And so Jeff went off to grad school at USC, but on that run was his childhood friend, Matt Vossler. And so Matt came back to New York and was working in the family business, now starting his career in his early 20s. And at the time in the 80s, we'll remember the advent of triathlon coming in, and the Ironman being a really big deal and on ABC Wide World of Sports. And so Matt looked around and said, we have to do something again to raise more awareness and raise more money. But, running across the United States wasn't going to be an option. So he came up with the idea of let's do a charity swim and let's do it across Long Island Sound. And let's do it as a relay. And so there were roughly 16 or so participants at that time that came. Now, what's also interesting, in addition to that boat sinking, this is off the 1984 Olympics. And, USA Swimming hadn't had an alumni association at that time. And so here the US hosted the LA Olympics, and you had, celebrities like, Steve Lundquist and Rowdy Gaines and others that wanted to do something to give back. And their fame in swimming was at kind of an all-time high in the 80s. And so Matt and others invited these Olympians to come swim with them, and they were there at our very first swim in 1987. Well, what does the boat sinking have to do with it? In short, too many people got on the sort of pilot boat, and it took on water. And a 28-footer is still at the bottom of Long Island Sound to this day.
No way. But thankfully, everybody on the boat could swim.
Yeah, and no injuries. Everybody came off.
So Rowdy, you're telling me Rowdy was on that boat?
Rowdy was in the water.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, so he was already in the water. He wasn't on the boat,
yeah,
but he was there.
Yeah, it was August of 1987 was our very first charity swim. And
my gosh.
That charity swim raised $5,000. And the boat that sank cost $60,000. Now, it doesn't
not a good start.
It doesn't take an economics major to sort of go, that's not a good start to a charity. We need to just come up with a better idea than doing this. But everybody had so much fun, and everybody was so inspired on that 14, 15, depending on how you measure it, mile relay, and they finished it, that they decided to come back and do another one the next year, and another one the next year. And then through the 80s and through the 90s, one popped up in Nantucket, and largely in Boston. And we existed as a Northeast regional nonprofit for, oh my gosh, Eric, the better part of 20 years or so.
So then you came into the picture, because I know you used to be the executive director, I think that was your title, of U.S. Masters Swimming. That's when I met you. You don't remember that because I was actually just a swimmer at the time.
Yeah.
But I remember meeting you at Masters Nationals. But I really met you when you were Swim Across America, and I met you in Charlotte.
Yeah.
So when did you come into the picture?
Yeah, and there was a point in there that's really important to know, that once Swim Across America got over about $1 million a year that it was raising, and I get asked this question a lot. People want to do something happens tragically in their life, and they want to find a way to give back. And invariably the question is, should I start my own foundation? Should I start my own nonprofit? And you certainly can. Like there's nothing stopping people from doing that. It's not an inexpensive, and it's not for the faint of heart. It does take legal fees. It does take charity registration fees. It does take website fees. If you're doing online technology and you're taking donations, you have to pay for all of that. Visa's not waiving their fees, for us on everything we process, for example.
Right.
And so Swim Across America had grinded its way to north of about $1 million a year that it was generating off its 4 to 5 charity swims that it had. And it hired somebody who your listeners may know, Janelle Jorgensen, in the mid-2000s. And Janelle was really viewed as our first executive director at Swim Across America. And she came in with a charge and a vision. Let me take this from a Northeast regional nonprofit and see if we can go out almost like a church plant. Can we create one in San Francisco? Can we put one in Seattle? Can we put one in Dallas? She did. And she took us from a handful of swims up to about a dozen swims. And in essence, took us from a little under 2 million in revenue to about 5 million in revenue over a 7-year period of time. Now, she also did that during the global crisis of 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, when the world was totally upside down and charity giving was not in vogue, and we didn't have all the online technology. So it was an incredible heavy lift that Janelle undertook to get us here. Janelle is still involved with our organization, and actually she and I flip-flopped. I was on the board of Swim Across America, and then when she decided to step down and be full-time mom, she asked me if I would succeed her. And so I took her chair and she took my chair. And so I think that really speaks to the culture of Swim Across America. A succession plan was put in place, it was implemented, and I still view her as a wonderful mentor, a counselor, someone who I talk to regularly. She intimately, there's no other person out of the 250,000 people have done our swims over the years that know Swim Across America the way that Janelle does. And so I really lean on her for a lot of advice.
Well, that's amazing. Now, this is personal to you, clearly. You
Yeah.
didn't just do this because you wanted to work for a foundation. So
Yeah.
what got
And,
you
and
here?
my inflection point was 2006 when it was actually Thanksgiving time. My mom wasn't feeling well. My mom and I were incredibly close growing up. We didn't need something like cancer to bring us closer. We were already there. And my mom called me. Well, I was with her at Thanksgiving, and she said, I'm not really feeling all that well. And, we didn't think anything of it. So she goes to get a doctor's appointment. And, they turned out, they told us that we think you have cancer. And they wanted to do surgery in December, right before Christmas of 2006. So I went down to be with her at the surgery, and the doctor came back and goes, I don't really, it's a rare cancer. I've not seen it before. And it turns out it was actually appendix cancer, which is really rare. It's not one that you hear often. It's, everybody's like, what's the appendix used for in the body? But in this case, it was like taking a dandelion and going whoosh, and blowing
It
it.
just spread.
And before you know it, cancer has just completely invaded all your organs inside of you, colon, liver, kidneys. It just spread so much. And what happened is she was feeling bloated. And that bloated is what they call ascites. It was the cancer cells inside of her abdomen. And so she had that surgery in 2006. She had a second surgery in the summer of 2007. And that was considered the last chance surgery to try and save her life. And unfortunately, she ended up passing away. And so, those words that a family is told or a loved one is told or that you hear personally, you have cancer, like, Kelly, you want to hear there is hope. There is hope. And, the reality is for my mom at the time and so many others, there was no hope. Appendix cancer, pancreatic cancer, you could go on down the list. While we have made incredible strides, and today there's immunotherapy and there's CAR T therapy and there's genetic therapy and there's more detection. While we have made strides, the reality is every 15 minutes, 50 Americans are diagnosed with cancer. Let me say that one more time.
Again?
Let me say it one more time. In the time that you and I are doing this podcast, let's call it 30 minutes, 100 Americans are diagnosed with cancer. Every 15 minutes, 50 Americans are diagnosed with cancer. It's over 4,000 Americans a day that are diagnosed with cancer.
Okay. You can admit it, not my best audio editing because I don't have an intermission soundbite or intro music. This is actually the first intermission in Rule Your Pool podcast history. And I'm recording this the day after my interview with Rob. Here's why I'm doing it. The rest of this episode that you're going to hear hit me very personally and hit the rest of us pretty personally too, because we did lose Kelly. And we have decided as a company, we are going to participate in Swim Across America, and we are inviting you to be a part of our team. It can be totally anonymous. We may never know unless you want to be known. You can make donations to our team through Swim Across America in honor of any of your loved ones or friends, anyone you want. It doesn't have to be Kelly. Most of you don't know Kelly. But every penny of your donation goes to them. Orenda will never see it. It goes straight to Swim Across America. And as you listen to the rest of this episode, listen to where Rob has that money going. It is pretty cutting edge stuff. And I'm convinced, having swum in this event 2 times already, it's an amazing event. It's huge energy. And most people are not comfortable swimming, especially not in open water. If you are not a competitive swimmer, it can be pretty scary. But I will swim for you. And so will Miguel. We will swim on your behalf if you are a part of our team. And I'm kind of laughing, like, I'm not even believing this, but he said it, so here it goes on the podcast. If we exceed our fundraising goal, Jared himself said he will swim in that lake with us. Yep. He said it, and now it's on record. So here's what we are trying to do. We will match up to a certain amount of money. We're not going to publish how much that money is, but our minimum target fundraising goal is $5,000. I think we can hit that pretty easily. If we get over $10,000, Jared will swim. So here is how you can donate on the Swim Across America website if you want to participate in this. And I think we're going to probably publish it live on Facebook so you can be a part of our team, even if you are not able to be in Dallas and actually swim in that lake. The website is swimacrossAmerica.org/go-to, that's GOTO, /Orenda. Again, that is swimacrossAmerica.org/go-to/Orenda. You can go there, you can make your donations there of whatever amount you're comfortable with. But I will tell you, knowing the metrics of this podcast, a lot of you are listening, and we are extremely grateful for that. I don't want to take advantage of that. Everything's anonymous. Do not feel obligated at all. We'll never know unless you want to be known. But if you want to be a part of something bigger, as we have decided to do, this is a great opportunity to do it, and I would be honored to swim on your behalf. And if you'd like to swim, hey, come join us. You know where we'll be. It's an open water swim in Dallas, Texas on September 24th, 2022. That's where Orenda will be, and if you want to be a part of that, you are welcome to be. Again, that URL is swimacrossAmerica.org/go-to/Orenda. We will put that link in the links below this podcast episode. Thank you so much, and please enjoy the rest of this episode. It's really meaningful, and not everything's about pool chemistry in life. I think this is something a little bit bigger. Enjoy, everyone. Thanks. So let's take a moment and let that pause and sink in, because I know for the audience, they're expecting a pool care podcast. The reason I'm having Rob on here is because I've been active in this swimming. I've been in 2 of the charity swims. I would have done it during COVID, but they had to be canceled. Let me tell you, having been a competitive swimmer, I went into the first one thinking, yeah, I know I haven't swam in 8 years, but I got this. I did not have that. It was pretty humbling, and I was expecting, a few dozen people to show up. I showed up to Lake Norman, and there were hundreds of people there. There was live music, or a DJ maybe, loudspeakers, a ton of energy. I mean, volunteers everywhere. I could not believe how well organized this thing was. And I don't know how much was raised, but some people, like Dawn, raised over $50,000 for it.
Yeah.
And I want to know, before talking a little bit about Kelly and honoring her, where does the money go? You guys are not just giving it to a hospital. You're doing things that are creative, right? Aren't you on the risk side of this of like, let's be experimental. Let's fund the things that most people don't know how to fund?
Yeah, and I love when people want to dig into our charity, dig into our financials, because what you're going to find is that we have a staff of 8 that raises, let's call it $10 million a year, a staff of 8. And that, I know I see your eyebrows going up, because we rely on 1,000 plus volunteers in order to make this program work. And we're in 24 communities across the U.S. And what makes us so unique, Eric, is that this goes back to the 1980s. Money raised local stays local. So everything that you and Don and others raised, in Charlotte, and Harold's helped us with in Dallas, and your other customers and your company have, it all stays within that community. So pulling back the curtain just a moment, if you use our Charlotte swim where you were at, we have a relationship with the NCI Cancer Center here in Charlotte. NCI stands for National Cancer Institute designated. Levian Cancer Institute, and we have them in New York with Memorial Sloan Kettering, and Baltimore Johns Hopkins, and Miami with Miami Cancer Institute. And so when we enter into an agreement with that institution, that agreement spells that 100% of a grant that we make has to go into patient research or advancing bench research or a clinical trial. Why is that really important, and why does that matter?
And what does that even mean?
Yeah. So if you or I donate directly to a, institution, hospital, for example, a lot of times you don't have any control over where those dollars are going, right? They could end up sort of anywhere. And
it's like the general fund. They have discretion.
That's
over
exactly
that
right. And so we enter into an agreement that more or less means it's a donor restricted gift. So that when we make a gift, we have a science committee over 35 years, and many scientists have given of their time. Our beneficiary committee is over 200 scientists that are available to us, so they can read and research proposals. They can look at budgets. They know, who's who. And there will come in and actually help us sign off on, in the case of of Charlotte here, we support hematology in the pediatric program, hematology blood cancer, and then the pediatric research program here within Charlotte. And so our independent science board will come in and help us review and say, this is above board, 100% of the grant is going into patient research or bench research. And importantly, Eric, we're almost like an angel charity or an angel investor, or think of it like a private equity, where we go in and we're the first ones in to invest.
Right. You're the ones that you are the ones that are going to take that big risk, even if it doesn't pan out, because most people would say, oh, that's experimental. That's what I really liked about it, because I'm a big advocate of the right to try.
We call it high risk, high reward.
Right. If I am diagnosed with a terminal disease, God forbid, I am going to want to try whatever I can, because the fate is sealed if you don't.
Here's the connectivity to your audience and your customers that are listening. If anyone has benefited from immunotherapy, let me give you some brand names: Opdivo for melanoma, Yervoy, or most recently Keytruda. If you are a cancer patient or someone in your family or a friend has benefited from that, Swim Across America was there and provided the initial seed funding for patients to go through those clinical trials, because insurance doesn't cover clinical trials. And actually the pharmas are not paying for clinical trials. It takes a charity like Swim Across America in order to provide the funding for that clinical trial to occur. It takes nonprofit, charitable, philanthropic donations for that to happen.
Well, it also takes people who know where to put that money, because I would have no idea and say, I want something experimental. But it sounds like you have these boards of doctors and medical experts who can say, put it here. Put it in that.
I am personally and professionally so humbled because of that team that we have that stands behind us. And in 2018, for the first time ever, the Nobel Prize for Science was awarded to an immuno-oncologist, and somebody who was one of those connected beneficiaries for Dr. Jim Allison at Memorial Sloan Kettering, and participated with the Swim Across America Research Lab at Memorial Sloan Kettering. So while we say money raised local stays local, when you start to hear those names like Opdivo, Yervoy, Keytruda, and others, and new detection programs, you can think to yourself, wait a minute, that Swim Across America, what I did, my little swim in Charlotte, that helped contribute and lead to that? And the answer is, it did. It takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. Keytruda, for example, we started funding with Johns Hopkins in 2009, when Merck at the time, it wasn't even a brand. It wasn't even an FDA-approved immunotherapy. It was on theirs. They had the vaccine that they had already manufactured, but they needed patients to go through the clinical trial. Swim Across America was the one funding the clinical trial for the first subset of 20 to 30 patients to go through it and see if they would even respond. These were patients that were diagnosed with, say, stage 4 colon cancer and had a genetic disposition to show that they might respond to an immunotherapy. And immunotherapy is not chemotherapy. It's not radiation.
And insurance doesn't cover it.
No, it's not radiation and it's not surgery. But Johns Hopkins is out seeking patients, as an example, to participate in the clinical trial because the funding is there from Swim Across America to allow the patients to go through that. As a result, enough patients responded to it that the first indication occurred in 2016 with the FDA approval of Keytruda. And now Keytruda, just as an example, because it's the one most recently in the headlines, I think there's over 17 different indications that it works for. So if
that's incredible.
Yeah, if you're a patient being diagnosed with all these other, and the other common question we get is, well, are you focused on lung cancer, breast cancer, pediatric? Our view, Eric, is that all cancer is bad, and wherever our scientists tell us that our funding can make the largest impact, because they're the ones on the front line, that's where we want to go. Where can we take the biggest bet, the biggest risk, because someone has to, and we're willing to do that. We're willing to go there and follow what our scientists will advise us.
It's a pretty incredible experience to go to one of these events, and I've done it twice. And the first time I did it, I've known many people who have died of cancer in my life, but I had never had a family member die of cancer until recently. Before that first swim, I lost my aunt, and she. It started as breast cancer, and they found it very late, and it was already in her bones, and she fought it, and she lived over a year, amazingly. I mean, she was just so determined, and it ultimately won. but I swam. I wrote her name on the flag. That's a really cool thing that you guys do. You have backstroke flags, and everybody can sign why they're swimming and the names of the people they're honoring.
Yeah,
which is a very cool thing.
It's really an experience, and your folks at home may be thinking, well, wait a minute, Eric is like an Olympic trial swimmer, and he said he struggled. Like, is this an all-day swim? And
well, yeah, there's different degrees of how far you swim. I was an idiot and chose a further degree because I'm like, I got this.
So
Yeah, continue.
we typically offer a half mile up to a 3 mile or a 2 mile option as the longer distance, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And most of our swims take place in a lake or they'll take place in an ocean. But I tell you what COVID taught us too. It was a lot like a restaurant not having takeout. And everything we used to do was in a live, you had to come to the experience. And COVID taught us that there's an appetite for people that wanted to participate virtually with Swim Across America. And so we weren't able to offer any charity programs, live programs that is, in 2020. So we created something called My Way, and that's a virtual program. So to your point, Eric, we saw people that we may not have a swim in, Arizona, for example. We saw people in Arizona want to support us and like, can I swim in my pool, my backyard pool? Can I swim with my master's program? Can I swim with my triathlon program? The answer is yes, you can. And you can register for any of the local charity swims. So if you have a friend in Virginia, like I know where you're from, Eric, right? But they live in Arizona and they want to participate, it's like, great, sign up for our Virginia swim that's in Richmond, join one of the teams virtually, do your swim, put it on social, and you'll find donations will start to come in for you, and it will all benefit the Richmond swim and our beneficiary there in Richmond. So last year, even with all of our swims going live, we still saw 8% of our participants that did our virtual program, and we're seeing that number grow in 2000 and now 22.
Well, I was amazed the first swim, I was amazed at how many people showed up. The second swim, I was expecting it, and even more people showed up. I was really astounded at the age ranges and the ability ranges of people who were doing the longer swims. I mean, you got to remember those ladies, and bless their hearts, they did the 3 mile swim. And I'm telling you, I know how to swim, and I would not have wanted to do the 3 mile, but they did it because they both lost their spouses to cancer. And they just kept putting along and didn't quit. And I thought, that is a level of grit. And what I really liked is nobody left. Nobody left when they were done until those ladies were done.
Yeah.
And they came in, and it was just a standing ovation for them. I mean, talk about the support. It was incredible. It was a really powerful experience to witness that.
My twins were 8 years old, and you've met them, Eric, at the time.
I have met them, yes.
Yeah. And even they don't have a swimming background. They're not an age group year-round swimmers, but they even did the half-mile splash with us. And it was really cool because one of the things that we have is called angel swimmers. And angel swimmers could be an Olympian, it could be a college swimmer, it could be a national swimmer like you. And angel swimmers swim side by side with other participants that, maybe don't feel quite comfortable doing a half mile. And so I wear my Queen's hat with sort of pride, Queen's University, because my twins swam with the Queen's University swimmers who came out and did the angel swimming with us.
And they all showed up. The whole Queen's program and many of their alumni were there. I mean, it was... 40 or 50 of them. It was amazing.
And to my Beckett and Max, I mean, somebody like Hannah Aspiden is their hero and role model to this day, and she swam with them again this past year. And it's like every year they look forward to coming back because they want to swim with more Queen swimmers. And there's more social and there's more fun. We did a swim in 2019, and we did it in Arizona with Michael Phelps, and his age group coach, Miss Kathy, was diagnosed with breast cancer and was fighting, and Michael wanted to do swim, and we did it in a pool, which is fine. We just took all the lane lines out, we put buoys in each corner and simulated an open water course. And one of Michael's stipulations was that we don't publish times. And so I understood clearly why, and that's why the Olympians love Swim Across America so much. Is
they do.
Michael doesn't need the pressure of someone coming to a charity swim and going, I beat Michael Phelps, and then he gets the media on his doorstep saying, when are you coming back? And he goes, what are you talking about? I'm doing a charity swim. And so the Olympians feel very safe with us because the integrity of what they did and performed at the Olympics is intact. And people are there because they appreciate that they're all giving back to a charity. And you know what? In 35 years, we've never paid an Olympian.
And you don't have to. That's what's amazing. You had several at the Charlotte swim, but I would imagine you probably have Olympians at every swim or close to it.
Just about. I mean, there's over 150, and you could find that on our website at swimacrossamerica.org, all the Olympians that have volunteered and participated and given of their time and likeness. And I think they feel very good. And it goes back to one of the earlier things we talked about. They read our financials and they can see that all the money is going to a cause. I mean, when you're raising, close to $10 million a year and you're doing it with 8 people, and you're donating so much. And for us, we're very blessed. We've had some big corporate partners that have underwritten a lot of our costs for us. It's not inexpensive to put on these open water activities and do it with safety and do it with a focus on risk management the way that we do. But, our partners have stood with us because they've seen the impact, and they know that if they put in $1, it typically translates into minimum of $5 in new fundraising. And so it's smart for them.
Yeah, it is. And the thing I want to say to the audience is your organization already has the infrastructure to put the dollars where they need to be spent. It's much more difficult to try to DIY donations in a meaningful way because unless you really know what you're doing, but that's really rare. I mean, if I want to donate to something, I'm going to look at, okay, what percentage does that charity keep? Is this a majority of the money going to where it is? And yours absolutely is. And that's what I really liked. And I wanted to introduce you to the audience because we do have a vastly growing audience, which kind of astounds me, honestly. I kind of joke about it and say, well, all 7 of our listeners. Oh, no, it's way more than 7 now. And what we try to do on this podcast, listeners, all 7 of you, we try to add value to what you do when you're managing your pool. I realize this is not about pool care, but since you have pools or you treat pools, you're around water quite often. I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, please understand that you can make quite a difference, even if it's in a small way, because there's a lot of you.
Can you take a moment, Eric, and talk about what Kelly meant to you guys?
Well, yeah, I'd be happy to. And that really inspired why we're doing this conversation now. So Kelly, you would never have seen her in our videos. She's not in Orenda Academy. She never really answered the phone. She was in the back end of our business. She was the one who kept everything running. She worked in our fulfillment department. So Kelly, for the better part of 15 years, long before I was there, Kelly was in the bottling facility. She was ordering the cardboard boxes. She was ordering the labels. She was ordering the bottles, the caps, all of the stuff that was required, all the raw materials that needed to be blended. She was in charge of all of that. She made sure that the products were done in an NSF certified way and that we were always within NSF 50 compliance. It was a hard job. And then COVID hit and it became a very, very hard job. Any of you in manufacturing or even in the trade trying to get stuff, you understand the supply chain pinch is real. Kelly navigated us through that, and she was very good at it. She's going to be deeply missed. And so effectively, I don't remember exactly which week it was, but it was about 2 months ago, maybe. Kelly had an accident in the gym. She was on the stair climber, and she fell, and she hurt her shoulder really bad, like really bad. And so she goes to see the doctor or an orthopedic or the hospital. I'm not sure exactly what it was. And they scan her shoulder. Yes, she broke her shoulder. But they said, that's the least of your worries. There were tumors everywhere. And it was too late. So that transpired into just a decline over 8 weeks or so of taking over her body and bones fracturing. It was in her bone marrow. It was just tragic. It happened so fast. I'm still kind of stunned now. And I wasn't even that close to Kelly in that, I mean, I knew her, of course, but I didn't deal with her every day. Jared and Harold did. And she kept our business running. And when I say these are huge shoes to fill, I mean they are huge shoes to fill. It is so sad. And she was just a very sweet lady, worked very, very hard, came from nothing, earned everything she ever made, and was disciplined. She was up early in the morning and everything, and she will be sorely missed. And this year, at your charity swim, I'll be swimming for her. They found her too late, or she found out too late. I have a best friend of mine who lost his little brother to a glioblastoma. He died at 22. That was tragic. Kelly's is tragic. Some cancer, it kind of loses, depending on how old you are, it loses the word tragic the older you get with any kind of death because, you've lived longer. A lot of it's very sad, especially if you're fighting through it and it wears down over time. With Kelly, it hit so fast it was like a Mack truck. Nobody had time to react, and there was nothing that could be done. It was horrible. And I don't wish that on anybody. And the truth is, my first swim with you, I only knew one person in my family who had ever had cancer. Since then, I've lost 2 more. And we've lost Kelly. And I've lost a friend's dad. And another friend. And if you have not lost someone personal in your life to cancer, I guarantee you know somebody who has. I guarantee it. And I'm not advising you to go out and ask, hey, who's lost someone to cancer? But you could ask that question in a meaningful way. And you could find out there's a lot of people around you who could have really benefited with a few extra months of their life or a few extra years, or maybe hope that this could be defeated with an experimental treatment. That's why I show up. It's not just because I like Rob, and I do like Rob. Nothing personal, Rob. I actually like making that difference. It's one of my unique abilities. I am able to swim. I am capable of doing this lake swim, and I am capable of raising some money to do this. So companies listening to this, if you want to participate and help out this great cause, it is directly in your industry. Rob is involved in our industry. Not just Rob, but the organization is about swimming. Our entire industry is predicated on the fact that people need to learn how to swim. Backyard pools are leisure, but swimming is a life skill.
I mean, Eric, I'm the only swimmer that's on the national board for the Pool and Hot Tub Association.
Yeah, for the PHTA. You're the only swimmer.
Yeah.
Well, technically, Rob, I would call you a swammer, but you actually swim actively.
I know.
I don't know what's wrong with you. You're kind of messed up in the head,
It's
honestly.
still a disease that I have, but I love to be near the water. But when I'm there, I try to represent the voice of us, the consumers, on the board, because we've got industry people and we got manufacturers and so forth. I'm like, guys, you need people like me that carry family memberships, and I'm the knucklehead, Eric, that carries them in like 5 different places here in Charlotte, and has them and uses my backyard pool, as you saw, with my tether that I swim in as well too. So I'm kind of addicted to water.
Well, you show up to the YMCA when I'm lifting weights, and you're the one walking out of there wet from swimming, and I'm like, oh, man, I was the swimmer. The roles are kind of reversed here. But you're right. You are an active swimmer.
It's all for fitness.
There are not many people in this industry that were competitive swimmers. And that's not a knock on the industry. I think that's any industry. There's just not that many competitive swimmers when it gets right down to it. But you don't have to be to do this. I will tell you, the vast majority of people that I saw swim across that lake, well, it's not even swim across. It's like right along the shore. It's not. You could stand up if you had to in an emergency. And there's safety people all around on kayaks and stuff. Most of them were clearly not swimmers. And they showed up and did it.
My takeaway message would be that every one of our charity swims relies on 50 to 100 volunteers also. So even your listeners that don't want to swim, that's totally fine. Come volunteer. Mm-hmm. Come be inspired, and you yourself will be an inspiration. So just go to swimacrossamerica.org. The community button's right there at the top. Pick one that's near you, that works on your calendar, works for your date, works for your family, works for a loved one, and just come be part of the cause. We want you. We need you.
I'll say that slower. It's swimacrossamerica.org. Orenda benefits nothing from you doing this. This is between you and them. It's between you and your loved ones who may have been affected by it. I'm strongly advocating for it because it's an incredible event. If you can volunteer, if you can show up, and companies listening to this is a great way to give back. And it is tax deductible, is it not, Rob?
All of it. Yeah, and some people make straight donations. Some people donate based on product sales. Some donate based on matching gifts on teams and employees that participate. Man, we're filled with gratitude for anybody who wants to get involved.
And there's company sponsorships all over those places. I mean, I came to the events. There's tons of sponsors of that event, which is a great branding opportunity in your local community. If you're a pool builder or if you're a pool service company and you're trying to get the attention of homeowners that might have pools, this could be a great thing. I mean, I'm going to let you decide on it. I'm not telling you one way or another. I'll never know. This is completely anonymous. So if you want help doing it, you can reach out to me at podcast@orendatech.com. I want to thank Rob Butcher, the CEO of Swim Across America, for his time. Thank you, Rob, for being here. It means a lot. Take care, everyone.
Thank you for listening to Rule Your Pool, a podcast by Orenda Technologies. For more information on what we discussed in this week's episode, check the links in the description or visit www.orendatech.com.
I hope you find this show valuable enough that you tap that subscribe button and share it with your friends. You can also like us on Facebook and social media. And with our help, you'll be able to rule your pool without over-treating it with chemicals and wasting money. I'll see you next episode.